The Empower Hour series was created for all of the women out there who have done everything they were supposed to do in life and are struggling to discover what's next. I see you. You know there's so much more out there, but you just don't know how to align with what's next for you. Well, you're not going to struggle anymore. It's time for you to create your new path and fall in love with your life over and over again. See that badass woman over there who has discovered what's next for her? Let's go ask her to share how she did it and become inspired. And if she can discover what's next, so can you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Empower Hour series. This week, we have an incredible guest, Lindsaya VanDeusen. Lindsaya is on a mission to inspire humans to unlock their intuitive wellness potential through conscious conversations and consumption. And Lindsaya, like so many of our guests, has an incredibly inspirational story, and she's going to share about the journey that she stepped into and the journey that she still is on. So Lindsaya, welcome so much to this show. We appreciate you being here, and I'm so excited to hold this space and have this interview with you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that we met in real person now. It almost feels like one more layer.
One more layer. And just as background, Lindsaya and I met on the app Clubhouse. So we do rooms together, we hang out together there, and that's where we connected. So we're used to hearing each other's voice and seeing the image of each other in our profile pictures on that app, if you're familiar with it. So this is the first time that we're actually seeing each other in real time on a screen, and it's always surreal when this happens, for sure.
Yeah.
So as we always start this show, Lindsaya, we often talk about where we started on our journey in terms of what we started doing in our lives post high school, career wise, where we stepped into that. So you started as a licensed hairstylist. So do you want to talk a little bit about what got you into that field?
Yeah, well, to your watchers, viewers, you're in my kitchen with me, so sorry, we're mid-conversation. But with, what really honestly started it, I, in high school, battled with a lot of depression. I was overweight, I had migraines, acne, eczema. I had I played sports, I had a lot of friends, if you will, people friendly, but I very much felt isolated, and I didn't feel like I fit in the town and in the place that I lived. And when I learned that you could go to beauty school while in high school, I was like, oh my gosh, I can get out of school. You could translate the credits for towards some of your science credits going into college. So I was like, that's a bonus. And my grandma, actually, who was like just my love, she was a beauty school teacher my entire life. And so on Saturdays, every once in a while, she would take me in there, and I was a real live princess. Like they just doted on me. And so everything about doing hair and, growing up as someone with that battled body dysmorphia and, just really challenged with self-love. And I really didn't even know what that was. The idea that I could go while I was in school, learn how to be more beautiful and maybe make some other people beautiful too. And have a job I could do when I got out of high school to go into college rather than like working in a bar or something like that.
Yep.
It just 100% was like logical. And I felt like, I was like, seriously, I can do this. So I did it. And that's really how it started. And some young women who I still call friends to this day, they were in it too. And so it was like also a bonus. We lived in the country. We had to like carpool to, another city. And it was like, I couldn't even believe this was going to be my high school career. And that's what it was. It's cool.
That's amazing. So you had a social aspect too, because you had friends connected to this. You were able to do it in conjunction with high school. So it's not even like you had to do it after the fact. And after high school, you were able to step into a career.
Yeah.
That's
it. Honestly, it was magical. I want to go back and hug that girl for being so insightful. I never could have imagined, like, I didn't know I'd fall in love with the industry the way that I have. I didn't know that I would like do what I do in the industry the way that I do. I didn't know that I'd learn all the things in regard to wellness there. Like, it was amplified because of what I was doing in what I do in hair. And I was like, my life literally paralleled, and looking back, it couldn't have happened any other way. But like, I had no foresight for that. I was just like, I like to sleep, and working at a bar, I already knew it was like late nights. And I'm like an early morning to class kind of girl. Like, I just rather get it done by noon and be done with the day. So still how I function to this day. And yeah, it was like, this is it's a good job. And then you just fall in love with people. You fall in love with
Yeah.
something, you fall, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So that I love that. I think that's there's so many consistencies here with your story, and falling in love with people and struggling yourself at a young age with your own, it sounds like, self-esteem and self-worth and some body image difficulties and struggles and some depression. So struggling with your self-image, but being in a place where you can help people, not only yourself feel more beautiful, but help others feel that way too, and realize that. So it sounds like from even such a young age, you had such an awareness and also a passion for helping others realize the best version of themselves and feel like the best version of themselves.
Well, I feel like I need to write that down. because
You
I don't know that I've ever connected it completely. I mean, I say that and I know that to be true, but to connect it the way you just connected it and saw it in my story, like, I appreciate you for that gift, because like, we don't get to see it from the outside view,
outside perspective.
And yeah, thank you for that.
Of course. And that's, that is when we're speaking our story, sometimes it's hard for us to see what others can. And that can be, we often talk about like what our zone of genius is, what's our zone of genius, because we all have a zone of genius. And one of my areas is just that I'm able to look sometimes at people through their stories and pull out things that they might not otherwise see and make those connections. It could be the therapist in me, or just innately, that I'm able to pinpoint those things. But I'm glad that resonated with you. And you can rewind this all you want, because it's going to be airy. So you will have this documented. But I'm so, but I think that's great that connection was made, because it just sounds like that resonates with everything that's transpired for you. So you started out as a licensed hairstylist.
Yep.
Very early on. And then I know that I want you to share how you kind of stepped into a different space, which was, it sounds like along the lines of continuing that process of being able to help people in a different capacity, to be the best versions of themselves. But you stepped into a little bit of a different space. So can you talk about the different space that you stepped into next and how you came to step into that space?
Yeah. So in the hair world, so I'm a constantly curious human. I hope to truly exit in my final breath in that same concept in mind of remaining curious of what is to come. So, of course, as I started doing hair, I wanted to learn how to do it better, how to serve people better, how to become a profession in my craft. And in that, I not only found education, because that's how I found the learning, but I, came to become whatever. I became an educator myself, and then through education moved into managing the education territory, and then nationally, and in that grew to managing the brand that is here in the US that I'm partnered with, and it is a boutique but professional only hair color company. Well, we are a full brand globally, but in the US we only have hair color currently at this moment. And so that transition in parallel, and you can imagine, the different trainings and experiences and all of the things, all the growth, the personal growth and professional growth attributed to that. And in that, I was on my own wellness journey, still like striving to love the inner me. And so I took over and was, a CrossFitter and a CrossFit coach and Olympic lifter for, again, chasing my own self-love. And so those things were happening paralleled. And it was amazing because beauty and wealth, health and wealth and fitness, like they're literally like a melting pot of stuff, all intertwined. And so, that was my journey there. And in my wellness, I started, noticing that I had power to bring people together and open up conversation, and people are curious, and I love that. And so I get to bring like my coaching and nourishing skills and then do it in that arena and help in that wellness sector of people's life as well.
Which is so awesome. And I love how you shared that, because I think when it boils down to it, we think about it, it is true that these industries do coexist and they cross over constantly. So the area that you started in, so the CrossFit journey started with your own journey, it sounds like, because you wanted to get it like that was like a health and wellness area that you wanted to get into. And when you started to, because it is a community, CrossFit becomes a community, right? Because part of that premise behind it is to build each other up and to support one another and to cheer each other on. And that, it sounded like you resonated really well in that space, and that you became connected and a certified coach through that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was. Yep. I'm no longer even practicing CrossFit. Yeah, I think the underlying thread is I find myself in community. That's what I continue to recognize. I always find myself in community of people who are doing, whatever it is that is like my goal or my next highest level of self for me. So whatever that would be, if I wanted to run a marathon, I'm not the type of person, and this is just about knowing self. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I know that if I was going to run a marathon, I would find a group to do that within. Like, right. I wouldn't start heading out on runs by myself. It's just the way I function.
Yeah, no,
I'm the most joyful. So that is exciting for me,
Yeah. And I think that there's something to be said about that, because whereas you said, this might not be the way that everybody would do it, it's the way that works for me. I think that that's something to keep in mind. But I also see that when you're stepping into a new space, if I were to run a marathon and I have no idea how to even train for that, I would probably want to connect with people who have run a marathon or who know a little bit more about that than I do, because maybe that isn't my zone of genius. Maybe if I want to learn that, I'm going to go and connect with the people who already do that. So I think even if we thrive in independence, when we're looking to step into a new space, it's so important to connect with people who maybe have done it before, or maybe have expertise in that area, or maybe are also going through that journey, so that you feel connected in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that, we're mammals and we're meant to be pack animals. And so I do believe that we need to be in tribe together. And I think you can create that around whatever construct you want. And I when I look back on my life, and I think, I can only wish that it's like this amplified moving forward, is that when something, speaks to me and I feel called to it, that I allow myself to be a student and I immerse myself amongst people who are happily extending their hand backward and saying, come on with me, because I hope to do that for people as well. Like, yeah, I'm not an expert. I have experienced things, and I hope through my experience and my delivery that I can help people. And I'm like, if you like the sound of my voice, if you like the energy of just being with me, my hand is back, sis. Like anything and brother and sister and everything in between, like my hand is backwards. And if there's something I can do, just let me know how I could show up for you. And also, it's just, I think we miss that in community.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think that I think a lot of people can struggle with that, because if somebody has a spark and they feel like they want to do something, sometimes there's this crazy expectation that they should be able to do it by themselves, or I should be able to figure it out by themselves. And then oftentimes what happens is, because I have that expectation, when I'm not able to do it, it falsely validates, oh, maybe I'm not meant to do it, or I can't do this, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I was thinking, I'll just stay in my little comfort box and I won't take that step, because maybe the expectations that we had of ourselves were too grand. And maybe looking to people that are within a community, or people who have done it before, somebody who can hold their hand. I like how you even said that, and the visual that you gave us, because now we can see each other visually with literally putting your hand back for someone to, for you to pull somebody up with you. I think that there's such value in that. And it's not something that anybody should be ashamed of doing. We can't do everything on our own, and there are other people who have done it first. So why not connect with those people to help build you up?
Yeah, I think that it is easier for ego to do this and reach down than it is to do this and reach up and
I
ask
agree.
for help. So I think that it can be challenging to ask for help. I know this is a challenge of mine, even though I now know in my logical conscious brain that it is a sign of strength.
Yep.
The reality is I have been programmed for years and years and years to feel as though it is a weakness, right? So I think that is, if there was anything to like empower, to empower your incredible community, because I just think you're fantastic. Like, I love the conversation. And by the way, whenever we're on Clubhouse, if I'm saying behind me, I'm doing this, just so you know.
I can see that too. I'm always using, yes. And I'm going to have that visual when we're doing groups.
I like talk with my whole body. Yeah, for sure. 100%. So anyways, but the reality is if I was to leave people with anything like at all, it's that we have to, in community, become more comfortable asking for guidance, for help, for mentorship, for love, asking for what we need, like whatever that is, even if it's to ask in nothing more than a journal or just saying it out to your God, to your universe, to your source. I meet you wherever you are, but like just saying it. And I think that, and the crazy thing is we're like, yeah, that's easy, but it's not, because as soon as we start to want to say things out that we desire, we often decide we're not worth it. We're like, we like take it off the list, like not worth that one. And I'm as guilty as in this as anyone. So that would be my like thing, is just like speak it out, say it out.
Yeah. And ask for it. Right. And then you'll receive it. And I want to hold on to that one thought, because that feeling of unworthiness, and you have referenced, Lindsaya, that you had a feeling of unworthiness of holding space in the wellness community. And even though that was something you were passionate about, can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, I think that people tuning in and listening to these stories and your story here, I think again, that's what so many people struggle with, that unworthiness, that almost impostery kind of syndrome that prevents them from taking those next steps. So talk to us a little bit about what was that unworthiness that you felt when you were kind of pivoting into that wellness space?
Oh, yes. Okay. This is big. So 7 years ago is when I really made like my first forward proposal in the wellness space. And it was through a nutritional and gardening product. And I still love what I do. But, that was the first time I was kind of entering in that, where that was what I was leading with. Before it was fitness, right? Up until that point. And I had to cross the same bridge in fitness. Like I had to feel fit enough, am I fit enough to train other people, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, but in this particular, in the wellness space, I come from an injured past, specifically tied to the nutrition that went into my body and the lack thereof.
Okay.
And 16 years ago, my baby girl was born, and she was, I even had, an eating disorder. Like it was bad news bears. I didn't know that. My mom didn't know. Doing the best that she could with what she had, she didn't know. And my health was a testament to it. And my daughter, I know exactly where I was on the expressway coming back from finding out that she was going to be a girl, that it hit me, just absolutely hit me, that I was going to be a mom to a little girl. And I didn't want to give these stories, identities, quite frankly, this bullshit to her. I didn't. And I knew that the only thing I knew was it. So I was like, well, I definitely don't know what I need to know. And that is like, that's my moment. If you want to call like my shining moment, the golden hour, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just started, and I did a lot wrong.
We all do, of course. Right.
Yeah. But I didn't feel worthy of it because I was like, should I go back to school? I love what I do. Like, I love what I do in the hair industry, and I hope to bring more wellness to that industry and to have higher level conversation there. Like, do I need to get a health certificate and all of these things? And those things are amazing. And I want to honor all those practitioners.
Yep.
But that's not where my heart is. My heart is in like the simple strategies that I didn't have to go get any of that stuff to be able to implement. Like, it was literally at the end of my fingers, and it's all free resources. And I'm just a person who's lived it for 16 years. And I'm like, I have this shortened version. People who know me or watch me or whatever, they can relate to like, yeah, that's something that I need. And then I just help people do that. I help them to reduce the toxicity in their home and evaluate the food that's going into their body. And I teach them how to be their own advocate. And that doesn't mean I'll never in the future decide to do something. I don't know. But that is really my story. And so I had to realize that if someone is, presenting things that I know, like, again, I had issues, I had candy, I'm going to hook them up with the right practitioner to lead them through exactly what they need. So I just needed to ensure that, like, I had to get clear on who I wanted to be for people.
Yeah.
And that was my imposter syndrome, if you want to call it, or my feeling of like not being worth having success in that lane because I was not as experienced, if you will.
Right. And you had, and when we talk about experience, you had the experience, you lived it, you figured it out, you went through your own journey, you had the experience of life, right? And which when we're looking to step into a certain space, that's when we start to compare ourselves. We're like, well, I went through this in my life, but who am I to be teaching someone else this, or who am I to share this information with other people, or who are, they're not going to see any credentials next to my name. So why are they going to trust me and believe me? But so that sounded like so much of what you had to get past in order to say, well, wait a minute, I know what I'm talking about. I've done this. I've been through it. I went through the school of life, like I like to say. And I think that is so important for people to hear, because whereas, yes, we can say for the field that you're in, you're a licensed hairstylist, that's you had to get a certificate, you had to get licensed to be able to do that work, right? I'm a licensed clinical social worker, I had to get licensed to do this work. But there's other avenues where you can take your expertise of life, you could take the expertise of what has been valuable to you, and you can share that with other people, and you can create a whether it's a business, whether it's a passion, you can create something out of that. It doesn't, and I think that, to your point too, but knowing when I'm in a position where somebody might need a little bit extra, that might require somebody that maybe has, maybe is in another, licensed in another capacity, I have no problem saying to them, look, this is what I think you need. I'm going to support you and help you and put my hand back and hold you and go through what works, what I know to be true, but this might also help you too. So I think that all of those pieces together, is what really makes, it sounds like that really helped to get you to that next level where you needed to be. And that realization that I absolutely have the ability and can. It sounded like you had people coming to you just intuitively that were looking for answers, or were seeing what you were doing and knowing that you could help them move the needle that they were looking to move.
Yeah. And I think that's where it absolutely, like, it transformed, and I gave myself permission to be someone else's guide. And I never misrepresent myself and say that, I'm not giving health advice.
Right.
I tell people, I'm like, I am my own health investigator, and I can share with you how I investigated the health of my body and how I investigated the health of my environment. And I can help you, like, put your own critical thinking cap on. Like, you're an intelligent being. And if you're, the truth is that it's just hard to siphon through all the information. And 16 years ago, like, I actually had to go rent a VHS from the library for like my first like health documentary. So it's come a long way, but
Yes.
that's a great thing because there's so much information, but it can also, for some, feel like, where do I start? And
Yep.
so it's really easy when you have a partner in that does a close evaluation, figures out where are you right now, what would be the next best steps for you, and then
Yes.
how do we now make that manageable within, there's a lot of restraints. We have to, I love the SMART acronym, or smarter, really, if you use the new acronym for setting goals. So it's like, there are tons of ways to hit goals. It's just a lot of times we don't know, like, what are we even shooting for?
Right. Right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I think that, people get so stuck on that, right? People might have, like, what I hear you saying is people have, I have these great intentions, or I have this spark, or I have this thing that I need to do, but I don't know how to take those steps to do it. I don't know how to move forward with it. And I think that people like you, who are, guiding people in that wellness capacity, and how do I live more, how do I live more, you know, I'm tripping on the words here. Help me out.
Consciously.
Consciously, yes. How do I live more consciously? I want to. I know what that means to me, but how do I do that? That's where somebody like you comes in. I can show you how to do this. You don't have to figure it out on your own. I've done it for you. Or, somebody might come to me and say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but how do I get actionable with these intentions? And I'll say, I can show you how to do that. You can absolutely take steps to do that. It's very simple, and we can hold each other. I can hold you accountable to do those things. And I think what I find, at least, and I would love to hear your insight on this too, Lindsaya, what I find is, and I struggled with this too before I created and started my own business away from, in addition to my therapy practice as a coach, is I would say to myself, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know where to get started. I don't know how to do that, until I found a business coach whose zone of genius, if you will, was taking the pieces of identifying in her clients what their zone of genius was, and creating a business out of it. So I'm somebody who's great with mindset, and who's great with getting people from intention into action. And she helped me create a system that was going to help move that needle for people. She saw that in me. Somebody like you, who's helping people to be more conscious, right, of their wellness, and helping them move that needle. But what I find, and again, what I found to be true for me, was I felt guilty, and I felt really badly about investing. And when I talk about investing, I mean my time, because I didn't have a ton of it with what I was doing at the time. And financially, I had to invest financially to be able to get to a space where I wanted to be. And I felt so uncomfortable about that. I felt so guilty about that. I had to make a sacrifice, but I just was stuck because I didn't want to do that. I felt like I should be able to do it all myself. So do you find that too? Do you find that people get stuck in that place, or maybe you were stuck in that place too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a huge, I can think of many times in my life in which it felt, I call that like the slingshot effect, where you feel like you
I love it.
backwards to go
Yeah,
forward.
that's awesome.
You're like, oh, like, why does it feel like for that great leap? But I also think about it, like, you wind up for everything that's great. Like,
yes, you do.
That's right. So the reality is that there's always going to be that slingshot effect when, even think about it, like growing pains for kids, like right before, even the awkwardness of like their feet grow before the rest of their body. Like, there's just always this preparatory time in which I think there often feels like it can be easy to find the loss in it.
Yes.
And I don't think that growth will ever come without it. And I don't ever want to stop growing. I mean, in certain ways, like, I would like to, reasonably be around this size forever. I don't want to, I would like my feet to not grow. I don't want to buy new shoes.
Right.
Reasonably, I want to always keep growing. So I don't know that story will ever stop for me. Like, I can tell you my most recent one of what I had to do, but as soon as I make another big decision, I'll have had to go through that again.
Yep. Yeah.
And sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's a time burden, sometimes it's both. Sometimes,
Yep.
sometimes it's a loss of social, I want to call it clout, but not, social status would be the
Yep.
more appropriate way of saying that. Sometimes it's a loss of title. Sometimes it's a loss of a relationship. Like, the slingshot effect. So I think your direct question was more asking me like of a specific time, but that's more what comes up for me, because like, which one do you want me to tell you?
But I think overall the theme that I hear is that you're constantly a work in progress. You're constantly growing. You're constantly looking to learn. You're constantly looking to step into different capacities, but you also recognize what am I able to do independently? But then when I need to grab somebody's hand who's putting it back for me, right? That I am okay with understanding that there's going to be some kind of a sacrifice in order to get to that next step, in order to, ride that slingshot. I might have to sacrifice my time. I might have to invest something. I might have to give something up. There's all different kinds of sacrifices that we have to make when we're on that path of growth. And that's really what I hear you saying. It sounds like that's an overall encompassing theme that you've had to align and connect with, because you see that when you're able to do that, it gets you to where you want to be. It gets you to that next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is I used to always think of growth as so like out there, like what do I need to grow to? And now it's like, how do I need to go in? Like, I'm like, how much deeper can I get in? The deeper in, the more that translates into what people would probably call growth. So, I like to say that too, that like this idea of like constantly growing is like asking myself what I'm curious about, and then finding a way to align with that as much as possible in whatever, like, whatever arena it's in. And so it doesn't always translate to your job, but I mean, ideally, right?
Right. Because you want to do what you're passionate about and what you love doing.
Because there's going to be work in it no matter what we do. There's always going to be the work in it, but it's nice when it doesn't feel as much like work. And the truth is like, I'm sure you can also recognize that you have arrived to a very, a goal, if you will. And if it was based on just getting to that goal, then you might have gotten there and been disappointed, because like that, it's not a destination. That's like, that's like the next stop, like the next stop on the journey.
Yes.
So yeah, that's how
so true. Yeah.
Translate it, I guess.
Yeah. And I love that. It's also a lyric in an Aerosmith song that life's a journey, not a destination. It is. I could create a business on 80s and 90s music quotes and movie quotes. I'd be here all day. But for real, like I love that you said that, because once we arrive at a destination, the air could be out of our balloon. We could be like, oh, that's it. But if we look at it through that lens of every stop along the way is a journey. I'm not stopping here. This is part of my journey. This is part of my path. And I love that. I love that perspective for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a constant reframing for all of us, because it's the opposite of what we've all been taught to, how we've all been taught to think. And even setting goals can be in opposition to this. So I don't have it all figured out, but that's, it's definitely like as often as possible, I'm just striving to think this as part of the experience, not like, the pinnacle and then what. And so, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, with everything that you're doing, so you're still in the you're not doing the styling now, but you're still in that industry.
Correct. I'm the US brand director for Cayman currently.
Okay.
And so, Cayman is the boutique brand that is a hair color professional only brand here in the US.
Excellent. That's awesome. Yeah. And you're also in that wellness space too.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you. So I just love what you shared, and I love how, you know, you're constantly growing, and you're constantly on that journey, and you're constantly on your path, and you've recognized that not only is your mission to help others and put that hand back to pull others up and help others realize that they absolutely can too, but you're also you're constantly looking to grow. So if people are hearing this and they're like, oh, Lindsay, like, you're awesome, you rock, and everyone's probably saying that because it's so true, and they're like, they want to get in touch with you, whether it's to, you know, jump on this wellness journey with you, whether it's to talk about how to be more conscious with their wellness journey and how they're living in that capacity, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way? We're going to absolutely drop all of your links here, but I always like for people to verbally share that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm pretty easy. You can hit me in the DMs. No, but real truth. I mean, the truth is if you're inquiring regarding coaching or anything like that, head to the website. You can fill out, there's a brief form there. And then we set up a complimentary 30-minute discovery call to see if we're good, partners together. So that's the real truth. But I mean, you can find me on every social media platform. Lindsay is like, I'm the only one I've ever met. So
yes, I agree.
You type in my name. Typically I will come up at lindsaya.com is easy. Lindsay on Instagram, Lindsaya_com there. And Clubhouse is where we can be in a private chat. And if you want to do the whole wellness gig with me, we have a Facebook community. And so that link is in my bio. There's like links and bios and all the things. So find me one place, you'll find me all of them. I'm not undercover. I'm not hiding under a rock.
Love it. That's awesome. And then what I always like to ask too, before we close, is if you could, if you could say one thing to our listeners who are in a place where they're like, they're on that fence, they're teetering, they know that they want to step into a new journey, a journey in conjunction with what they're currently doing, but they just are nervous to take that one step. What would you say to them? What is something that you could share that might have helped you?
Okay. So this is what I use in my coaching. So I'm just going to drop it here, and it's actually part of what we do. But what I would share in that moment is that the answer is always within. It's never external. And the easiest way that I can help humans go within, that I have in practice and that I practice daily, is in breath work. So you don't have to become a breath practitioner to do this. This is one of the modalities that I tell people, like, listen, I've done a lot of different types of breath work, and they're amazing. And if we can talk about it, there's so much to learn in that, okay? But the truth is we were born, it was actually your first gift. You were given earth side, so it is yours. Close your eyes, breathe only through your nose. The whole idea is slower than normal, so I'll let you decipher that. Pause at the top and bottom, at least 6 deep breaths, more the better. Lie down if you need to, no big deal, in a seated, safe position. And I use the 6 from the book, so I have to just, note it. Breathe by James Nestor. The science behind it is there, but 6 or more nasal breaths, and ask yourself and go within. And whatever you find, whatever comes up, come out of that and journal. And it might not be the first time, but you have the answer. You already know. Your instinct and intuition was your gift the moment you were born, and it is here for you always. And the problem is we have muted it for too long. So that would be what I would say. That's
awesome. I want to drop the mic because, but really, I think that's so powerful, because you're so right that when we're born with all of this intuition, and what happens, it gets so lost and clouded and, perfect word, muted along the way. And it's just a matter of getting back to that. I love that idea of breath work and you breathing in through the nose. I think that's awesome. Say the name of that book one more time.
Breathe by James Nestor.
Breathe by James Nestor. Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's so awesome. And that's so empowering for others too, because sometimes we look to others, or we ask advice, or what should I do? What should I do? And the answer is always here, right? We always have that answer within us. So I love that you were able to share that. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Appreciate
much for
that.
having me today.
Of course.
Inviting
Thank
me
you so
on.
Yes, I'm so excited that you were here, and thank you so much for being here, Lindsaya. I appreciated your time and space and energy. And just so for everybody out there too, if you're wondering, like we talked a little bit further back about having those intentions, but really struggling to get into action. If you click the link below, I have my 3 steps to take your intention and put it into action. It's a free guide that you could download, and it'll help you get started. All I ask that if you do that, definitely get in touch with me in some capacity, whether it's through Instagram Messenger. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me, and let me know that you've done that so that I can hold you accountable for those first 3 steps. So that's the end of our show for today. And as I always end these shows, remember, guys, that just because you've done everything you're supposed to do in life does not mean that you've done everything that you're meant to. And definitely use that breath work. Give yourself that opportunity, and remember that you have all the answers in here as per Lindsaya, and take that with you for sure. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys on the next episode.